Today we're going to read a little bit from Genesis 1. So to make it easy on you guys, it's the first page of the Bible that has actual Bible in it. I know, it's pretty simple. If you can't find it, just keep turning backwards until you get to Genesis 1. That way. Turn that way, Daniel. Yeah, keep going. Genesis 1. No, not you physically. Turn in your Bible, dude. Also, I want to just throw out admit to you guys, I this morning forgot to bring my Bible, so I grabbed one out of the bin earlier. I just want to let you guys know, one time I gave Josh a hard time for not bringing his Bible, and I also didn't bring mine, so we all forget. But bring a Bible. Your own Bible to read out of. It'll be super helpful as we walk through different things at MSM. And so today, we are going to start a new series called Rhythm. And we, for the next few weeks, are going to talk about some spiritual disciplines is a word you've maybe heard. We're going to refer to them as spiritual formations, all right? And you might go in your brain, okay, I just heard you say spiritual discipline. I don't like that word, because you don't really like the word discipline, right? So when you guys think of the word discipline, what do you think of? Time out? Yeah, getting grounded? Yeah. Up and downs? Oh, those are the worst. All right, when you think of discipline, you either think of two things. You think of getting in trouble, right? Like you do something bad and then you get disciplined. Or you think about like being super disciplined. So like if you say I'm being disciplined in how much time I spend on my phone, that means you're trying to be like really regimented and not be on your phone. Or I'm being disciplined in how I eat. You're trying to eat really healthy so you can like work out and gain muscle. Like the word discipline kind of feels like this weird word where we have negative connotations, right? And so what's weird is that disciplines aren't actually negative, but that word can feel it. And so we're going to talk about instead, spiritual formations. That's the word we're going to use, and there's a reason, right? Because formations are all about forming us into something else. That's what a formation is, right? And so we talk about spiritual formations for the next few weeks. What we're going to look at is the idea that like we are being formed into something, right? And if you know Jesus, if your identity is in him, the hope is that you are being formed every day to live more into that identity. That to be formed to look more like Jesus and live in the identity he has for you. And so we're going to dive in and talk about these spiritual formations. We're going to talk about 4, right? Today's kind of an intro to this idea, but we're talking about silence and solitude, which is a really fun one. We'll then talk about Sabbath, which if you don't know what that word means, we'll talk about it in a couple weeks. We'll talk about slowing, so living our lives at like a slower pace. And the last one is simplicity. All of those, when you hear that, you might go, that's not what I think about when I think about spiritual formations or disciplines. I think about like reading my Bible and praying. And those are really good, and they're kind of tied in with what we're talking about. We're not just going to look at the actions, though. We're going to look at the heart behind it. All right, so I'm excited to jump in. But first, you might be wondering, Kevin, you said it's called rhythm, but then you talked about spiritual formations. How does that make sense? And so today I want to connect the dots for you guys, help you understand why we're going to talk about this and why you should be interested in it. And so what I think is really cool is that each of us in this room live in a world that is full of rhythm. All right, so look at the Bible. We're going to start there. Genesis 1. All right? Listen to this. I'm going to read a bunch of verses. Follow along. It says this: in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and void, and empty darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. There was nothing, and then God spoke and created. And listen to what happened as he created. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw that it was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. He called the light day, and the darkness night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. So God creates, he sees that it's good, there's evening, and there's morning the first day. And God said, let there be a vault between the waters that separate the water from water. So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the sky above it, and it was so. God called the light sky, and there was evening, and there was morning the second day. You already see kind of a pattern, right? God speaks, he creates something, he says it's good, and then there's what? Evening and morning, there's a day, right? And we see this over and over again. God then says, let the waters be gathered in one place. He creates dry ground. He creates waters. There's evening and there's morning. He then creates animals. He creates people. He creates all of these things. And there's evening and there's morning. And there's this rhythm to the world that God creates. And so in creation, there's rhythm that exists. And this is true, right? How do we measure a year? It's 364, 5-ish days around the sun, right? It is the orbit of the earth around the sun. How do we measure a day? It's 24 hours that the earth spins. One full rotation is a day. How many seasons are there? 4, technically. Texas, right? But we have some rhythms in our weather, right? What's going to happen is we're all going to think like winter's over, but then in February, it's going to get really, really cold. It'll probably freeze. It'll probably interrupt United in some way, right? There's a rhythm to our weather. There's all of this rhythm in the world. And then, here's the cool. Do you guys know what kind of moon is going to be out tonight? Exactly, a waning crescent. I'm so glad you guys all got it right. Right? A waning crescent, which basically just means a little sliver of a moon. Do you know what kind of moon was out 6 years ago on this day? A waxing crescent. Very good. You guys all clearly know the lunar cycle. But that's what's important. There is a lunar cycle, right? The moon has different phases, and you can literally Google to the day what the moon is going to look like, and you can go outside and you can see it. Because there's a lunar cycle. Our world is created with all of these rhythms in it. Right? It's pretty fascinating when you really think about it. This whole world has all of this rhythm that God established, right? And then that's on a macro scale. On a micro scale, there's a ton of rhythm inside of each one of us also, right? So there's biological rhythms. I Googled this word, and biological rhythms are the natural cycle of change in our body's chemical and functions. It's like an internal master clock that coordinates the other clocks in your body, and it's located in the brain, right above the nerves where the eyes cross, made up of thousands of nerves that help us function. So we have circadian rhythms, right? You guys know what that word is? Yeah, circadian rhythms, it's like your internal clock. It establishes your sleep cycles. So for most of you, there's this wild thing that happened last night where you maybe woke up at a time and you were kind of confused, right? My children in my house, they get up somewhere between 6 and 7 normally, right? It's wonderful. My son wakes me up generally every morning at about 6:15, all right? We kept them up a little bit later last night knowing that the world was going to change, and at 5:45 this morning, which was technically 6:45, and technically my son slept in, he woke me up, all right? Because a rhythm, there's a circadian rhythm and a sleep cycle in his body that said it's time to get up. I don't care what time a clock says, it's time to get up. We have these rhythms in our body. And those sleep cycles, they affect our appetite, right? How many meals do you normally eat a day? 3-ish, right? We've been conditioned to eat 3 for the most part. You wake up, you eat. Lunchtime, you eat. Dinner, you eat. You're hungry. Your body establishes this rhythm. And then, our body temperature changes at different times of the day. We have hormone levels that change. All of this stuff is part of our circadian rhythms. We also have developmental rhythms. Right? Do you guys know, have you ever met a toddler, a young kid, and the mom is yeah, my baby is 21 months old. And you go, that's wild, just say almost 2. Do you know why babies measure by months up until about 24 months? It's because every month looks so different. right? There's all of these rhythms and these developmental things that happen in the first couple of years of your life. There's all of these expectations. And so we say you're developing just like you should be. You're on an average scale, all this kind of stuff. Because there's developmental rhythms established in us. And then when you become a teenager, you also then go through this thing called puberty, right? So fun, right? No, it's not fun. It is a developmental rhythm established in our bodies, right? And so we have inside of us rhythms, right? The world is created on a grand scale in rhythm. You are then created with rhythms inside of you, right? And here's what's really cool too. We as humans, we've then jumped on that and we like rhythm. So we have a 12-month calendar. And on that calendar, there's certain things that you think about at times of the year. So, Halloween just ended. What season have we entered? What's the exciting thing we're about to do? For a lot of us, this is debatable, I know. Most of us are really excited about Christmas. Some of us in the room are offended that everyone else forgot Thanksgiving exists, right? But either way, it's the best time of the year, right? It's the holidays. After that, we have New Year's. And then after New Year's, we have United. Exactly. Good job. Not Valentine's Day, because... And then after that, right, we get all these, we have Easter, we have the summer, we have all this stuff. At some point, each of you celebrates your own personal birthday in that, right? That's a rhythm you like to celebrate. And so we love rhythms, right? In creation, when God established his people too, he then gave them 10 commandments, all right? So life exists with rhythm, and God then gave us commandments, things to live by. Do you guys know what I'm going to make sure I have it right, what the third commandment is? Obey your parents? No, but that's a good one. Obey your parents. That's good. Thou shalt not kill? Nope. Yes. Don't take the name of the Lord in vain? Nope. Good one too. All right, I'll give you the answer. I know it's on the tip of all your tongues. It's remember to keep the Sabbath day holy, right? God, when he established commandments, when he established a law, he wanted his people to remember the day that he rested when he created the rhythm of the world. He created us to live in rhythms. We have these rhythms in our bodies, these rhythms in our world. And then he said, keep the Sabbath holy. Continue to live in the natural rhythms that I have established. And what's really interesting is as I researched this, I found that there's something called biological rhythm disorders. All right, have you guys ever heard of those? Obviously. Biological rhythm disorders. There's something that has been diagnosed for police officers, firefighters, all those people who kind of live lives where they're awake weird hours of the day, right? This is something that's common for them to be diagnosed with. And here's what it says. Biological rhythm disorders affect a person's health and feeling of well-being. Some of the effects, listen to this really clearly, are anxiety, daytime sleepiness, depression, lower performance at school or work, being more accident prone, lack of mental alertness, and an increased risk of other health issues. Let me ask you guys a question. Amongst younger generations today, what are some of the common ailments that people have? Anxiety, depression, sleepiness, lack of desire to do things. I would contend, listen up. I would contend that part of that is because each of us lives outside of the rhythms that God has really created in our world for us to live into. Right? We're created to live a certain way, and because of technology, because of the way we live now, because of the interconnectedness of the world, we are outside of the rhythms God has established for us, which is leading to a bunch of issues for us. Do you guys know how long the average person slept before the invention of the light bulb? 11 hours a night, right? Technology has vastly changed how we live and how we move in our world. And so here's what I want to contend and send you guys to small groups. I think that if we can establish some spiritual formation, some rhythms in our life, things that can help us to live more in our identity of Jesus, that we can live a more rhythmic life and get back to how God created us, and so that we can, in this world, thrive more. It's not about making choices so that life can be better. It's about living in community in God, how He created us, right? And living in the joy and the fruits of the Spirit He told us He'd bless us with, right? And so, my hope with this series is we're going to talk about silence and solitude. And we're going to talk about Sabbath. We're going to talk about slowing down. And we're going to talk about simplicity to help us understand that establishing some formations to get us back to the rhythm God created us can actually help us live a better life. A life where we know Jesus more, but also where, man, our lives aren't as hectic and things aren't as crazy. And so that's what we're going to talk about in small group today. You guys are going to just dig into that a little bit more, dig into rhythms of your life and what those look like and what it might cause. And so I'm going to pray, and then you guys are going to go to small group. Jesus, thank you for your word. Thank you for time together where we can talk about being formed into your image, God. Each one of us, if we know Jesus, God, our identity is in you. But in this world, God, it's so easy to live for other things. And so I pray that you would help us establish formations to help us look more like you daily. And that as we do that, God, we become holistically, God, more in tune with you and more in tune with the rhythms you created us to live in. So Jesus, we love you. We thank you for this time. Bless our small group conversation. Bless our leaders. We thank you for MSM and a place to come and gather where we can safely discuss what we're going through. So Jesus, we love you. Bless our small group time. In your name we pray. Amen.